This is the third question regarding ELT, and it is related how particular literary forms can benefit the students. It means in our syllabi we have poems, short stories, novels, essays, drama. Which form will be suitable for which skill? We have already seen that our purpose in teaching ELT is basically to have the acquaintance, to have the understanding of four skills: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. How one particular skill can be benefited in one particular form. If a teacher knows that for reading poetry is good, for developing the thoughts, so story is good, for making the students imaginative more, novel can be helpful. That is what, if a teacher knows the benefits of particular form, then it will be very easy for the students to get the skills. Basically, in our mind, we keep thinking about students. Our aim is to teach them and they learn. Student, that is the learning attitude of them, will be benefited with the particular design, particular understanding of a teacher. So today we want to discuss which particular form will benefit our students. So we begin with the poems, poetry you can say. How poetry can help the learners. Many benefits have been given. They are like this. For example, you can appreciate the writer's composition process. Means how a poem is written. What was the thing in his mind when he started writing? And student can come to know the writer's mind. This is first of all a creative process. As T.S. Eliot puts that something happens first of all in his mind. What happened there, what he was thinking, can only be seen when we read a poem. Or you can say a writer has certain views. A writer has a point of thinking or point of view, a particular matter he wanted to deliver, he wanted to communicate, or rather, he wanted the reader to be in his position. So, poem is that which provides the learner this process. Another thing is developing sensitivity for words and the way then the poem is discovered. So deeper understanding of the work may be found out. A poem, when a learner reads, he needs to pay attention to each word. Remember, I am using the word each. It means uh, whether we have to find out right words are there, right position is there. In short story or novel, it is very difficult to pay attention to such a deeper level, such a closer level. But poetry is always limited to certain uh, limited lines, maybe even a lyric, maybe 15 lines or 20 lines, 30 lines, or maybe 50 lines, for example, but not more than that, except the ballad and narrative poetry and epic. Other forms, sonnets, odes, ballads, they are very short. In such a composition, a poet has used his talent. We want to know uh, what way he deals with a particular theme, particular character, particular feeling. Basically, poem represents feelings. So the learner will also understand the sensitivity, what has touched to the poet, how he takes it, in which mood is he put, and how he then thinks and takes to life. Such a closer affinity with the writer's experience the student will have. Moreover, that way he will also understand how he has put the thing, what is the right word, how other aspects of the poem comes out. So that sort of linguistic aspects as well as the meaningful things which have been put into the poem is brought out. That is the way to teach the poetry. Another benefits also have been indicated by Stark, a critic. He says that different view towards language by going beyond known usages and rules of grammar, syntax, and vocabulary. Poetry is always different than the day-to-day language. Or rather, you can say, even though the poet uses routine language, it is different from the daily context. It means when we communicate with our friends, the family members, or in day-to-day life, that usage is different. But the same phrase, word, or clause appears into the creative work, it changes. It takes a different form. How that word has been used, that you can show through this example. And moreover, linguistic aspects, uses of grammar, the way they change. For example, you can say one particular word is a noun and it is used as a verb, or one particular verb can be also used as adjective, or things that are changing. Deeper understanding of grammatical items can also be there. So, part of vocabulary, dictionary meaning always gives one meaning, but in poem it is different. You can show the student that, look, this is difference in using the word. So that is how you can suggest them. Moreover, teaching of the poetry triggers emotive uh, feelings in the readers, and that way an exploration into the poetic work opens, and it may be different to different students. One person may understand a poem according to his own perception, while the other student or other learner may have his different perception, because we have different backgrounds, different cultures, different understandings. So you can, after teaching, ask the students that how do you take this poem? This is writer's view, this is writer's feeling. He has understood this particular situation, experience in one way, but what is your view? So another vista opens for the learner. Next is, you can evoke feelings and thoughts into the learners. Uh, we can say that, have you such kind of an experience? Or if they have not experienced, at least they have gone through the writer's experience. Somebody's experience becomes your own experience. You are also sailing with the poet, the creative artist. That is how giving new experiences, teaching poetry provides. Poetry is basically composition which can be sung, or you can say it is a rhythmical creation, and it requires compact language. Hence, it is full of loaded meanings. You can say it has grammatical items, but figurative use of language makes it more. The students will come to know how figures of speeches can play an important, vital role in composition. And we are led to recite the poem according to rhyme and rhythm. So the things which in day-to-day life are missed, that is rhythm, singing qualities, or certain tones, they come out while we teach poetry. Poetry is basically meant for singing. No doubt we have come to know that all poems cannot be sung, but at least recited, and recitation can be done according to rhythm. You cannot read a poem like a short story, and short story cannot be read like a poem. Remember, rhythm is always found in any sort of reading. It means there is a way to read, but it is not metrical composition in short story, while it has in a poem. That basic thing you should keep in mind. So a teacher, while teaching the poetry, must know this, and he should tell the students that basically poetry is meant for singing. Here is a recitation. Here figures of speeches play very important role. Tone will also play very important role, as well as other parts of poems. That is use of figurative language, metaphors. Basically, without metaphors, generally poem is difficult to write. One way or the other way, metaphors continue to appear in literature. It has been said that metaphors rule the literature. So these are the things when you teach ELT, and especially when you teach a poem, keep in mind. Other elements are there, and these elements have been suggested by modern critics. You must have heard sign and signifier, or sign and signified. It means one particular thing appears in the poem, that is apparent one, a superficial meaning. All the time it may not be only superficial. Sometimes that thing indicates the another thing. So what you understand through that? Many poems will have direct meaning, simple meaning, not other things to convey. That can be also taught to the student. You can say that this is the way. But there may be many poems where you read, you understand it, things are clear to you, but that is only one meaning. It is only one sign. There are other signs, and they are to be understood by the reader. Different reader will have different understanding. It means the poem has that potentiality which can give you various meanings. And according to one reader's background, understanding, his view to the poem, his experiences of life may bring him different meanings. So that is signified. What a particular reader has understood that particular poem, that particular word. So meaning is not in the poem, but meaning is in the mind of the reader, that you can also explain and take an example and ask the students, or you can have your views that this is one meaning, this is another meaning, third meaning can also be thought of, and any person may have different views. For example, if you teach the poem daffodils, then you can say that this is the perhaps Wordsworth view. He looked at the particular flower and became very happy. When he was happy, he found that okay, but when he went home, thought about it, he found it more pleasant and becomes happier. It is the poet's experience, but some people may interpret the poem in a different manner. So this is what when we teach about ELT, when we think about English as foreign language, when we think about teaching such kind of various aspects and taking the students paying attention to words at the very closer level, poetry is a very good example. Poetry is a model. But again, when you teach the poem, one has to think that what sort of poems can be taught, what should be the selection, from where these poems to be found out, and you select poems which is having a simple language, or complex language, poems of the earlier times, poems of the modern times, poems related to particular movements or particular subjects. These things are also to be kept in mind. But basically, if you wish that your students pay attention to language, linguistic aspects, as well as figurative use of language, then poetry is very good one. So teaching of poetry is very much beneficial. This is the form number one. Second, form of literature. If we want to teach the student, now we shall talk about the short stories. Short stories also teach lot of things to the students. Moreover, they are very short, like poems. It would become very easy for the students. Poetry brings one kind of experience, that is elevated experience, or where you can see feelings are more important than thoughts. In short stories, things are different. There is also an experience or experiences. No doubt feelings are there, that's why the writer has written the poem. But rather than feelings, communication of experiences, and that way creating feelings is important. Hence, short story presents realistic experiences of life. It shows some parts of life. It brings some experiences which we find in day-to-day life around us. Means short stories indicate practical things that have taken place in our life or might take a place in the life. It is maybe it may be imaginative one also, not always realistic. But here a different level, and that is practical level, is considered, and that way short story will be very much useful. Poems may evoke feelings. Short stories may evoke some values that we find in our life, illuminates some of the experiences of life, and that way brings understanding towards the life around us. Some basic benefits which we find from short stories are like this. Short stories provide reading. It is easier task. If you want your students to read and want to make them begin, then short story will be very much useful because it is simple and it is very short. That's why the things are very much useful. Another thing is that they get views, that is world views, looking at the matter. They will come to know different cultures, different views, different understanding towards the world. They will also come to know that how different people face different experiences, how they look at the one particular situations. They will compare themselves that if an Englishman experiences these challenges and copes with them, then he can also cope the situation same way. Similarly, they will also come to know that this is not a matter of only English people. American people also have such kind of an experience. They have this culture, that is how they think. Let me give you an example that the celebration of festivals. One festival is celebrated in one country and another festival is not celebrated there at all. Kite flying is a very good festival in India in some of the parts, but same festival cannot be found into European countries or in African countries or in American countries. But Easter is celebrated in most of the part of the world, but in India, hardly people know that Easter is also a kind of a festival. And same way, celebration of certain festivals in Africa may not be found anywhere. But how people react in festivals, what do they do? what things they find, how life is there, what are the customs, what is the cultural importance of that particular festival can only be known when we read the short story. So different views, different cultures may be found out from teaching short stories. Moreover, short stories also provide creative insight into the work. It may be a work of challenging the person, and he requires personal exploration to understand the particular one. It means sometimes he may not have the knowledge of understanding the particular view. I'm reminded one short story by an American writer where I know the perhaps it is related the stories to horses. I want to know the reason why. Perhaps that is the title. I have forgotten the name of the writer. Where the narrator of the story, or you can say the protagonist of the story, experiences certain things. He watches the horses race, and he's very much interested in horses. And one thing happens that he is unable to understand, and the story ends. And then he comes to know that these are the things. But we are the Indian people, hardly pay attention to horses, and that way we don't have that much experience of bringing up the horses, very much acquaintance with the ways of the. This is the third question regarding ELT, and it is related how. Now we shall talk about benefits of short story, how this particular form can help the learners as well as the teachers. Short story, being a short form, it is very easy to read. This is the greatest benefit. Short story provides real life situations. So when a learner reads it, he thinks that these are the real problems he is actually facing, or he can also feel that certain situations around him have been reflected in the story. As Chekhov puts it, short story is a slice of life. It means what we see, what we feel, what we experience in the real life, those things are mirrored in this short fiction. Hence, it has universal values. The morals or the ethics that have been reflected, they bear universal value, and that's why short story is a wonderful resource to teach the students many skills. Not only it is related to soft skills, but in the terms of grammatical values or semantic values, and that is how the short story is very easy, uh, especially for reading. Being a short form and there is no tension like poetry, one can feel freedom to read. The uh, comfort short story provides is that it is not so much compact. In poetry, the language is very short. Hence, one need to examine each word. But in short story, there is no such a thing. If you miss one word or one sentence, one particular clause, even sometimes a few dialogues, then one thinks that there will be no problem. You will be able to understand the things. So this is how short story is having benefits. Uh, there are also some more benefits. The reader or the learner, when he reads the story, he thinks that he is a viewpoint to look at the world
maybe changed, or getting the new viewpoint, or whatever viewpoint he is having, it would be enriched. So a new viewpoint to look at the world would be derived from the short story. Moreover, short story would provide a different culture to a learner, whether it is Indian culture or American culture or European culture, African culture. One cannot go and see and experience everything, but the world of short story can certainly mirror different cultures. That is also a treasure we get from short stories. Short stories also provide creative mind, creativity. It gives a reader that he can also create like this one. He also has many experience. He has also feelings and thoughts. Only the thing is that he doesn't know how to write. But when he reads it, his creative ability may come out, and that can be a great value of a short story teach him. It motivates also the readers for critical thinking. One would begin to think that the particular character has acted or reacted to situations, to challenges, to some problems, then he can also react or act according to the character. Or he would think that this is not better. The particular character might have reacted in a different way, or in a way you can say he would begin to think that the particular characters may have thought like this. The result of particular action might have brought or drawn into various ways. That is how thinking about the characters, situations, moods, thoughts, even about the form, that is short story can do. A student would begin to learn about it. Then there is also one more thing, and that is regarding universal language. Uh, English is the language he is learning, no doubt, but here universal language in terms of feelings and emotions. Whatever he has found, the mirror of life in the short stories, certain things may take around him, or might have taken place around him, or may happen in time to come, or he might have come across certain situations. If not, he may come. That is how certain feelings they get universal values from short stories. Any learner will try to get involved into the action of the story. He would try to find out what actually one says and behaves, and what is the particular person's motives. It means the written words are different, they convey one thing, but at the back there may be different value, a different analysis, different critical thinking, or maybe other things indicated. So deeper meaning he would try to find out, and that is how he pays a close attention to written words and denotating meanings he would find. And ultimately it enriches the uh, readers. uh, his experiences would become rich. A person cannot come across all sorts of experience in a short span of life, but a piece of short story would certainly give him benefits. Moreover, short stories can also take him to a world of mystery and wonder. For example, we know that magic is impossible. It is only matter of tricks. But in short stories, those magical things may take place, and one can get benefit of that world. He enjoys it. It is a fantasy world the short story provides. So that is fantasy world, or you can say a world full of dreams and imagination can open to a mysterious stories can also be found out, and it provides a writer's uh, view to look into the matter. But on the contrary, it also provides the learner how to look into certain situations. He would try to find out how things have taken place, what cues and clues the writer has given, and how the story has ended. Mysterious stories, they are preferred by many of the readers. Edgar Allan Poe's story, if one reads, then he would demand more such type of stories. So short story is a itself new world, creative world, but types of short stories and from various countries short stories of past and present, the world of short stories can be a resource, and ultimately short stories are authentic material for linguistic models, for literary models, as well as for semiotic models. That is how we can select short stories to teach our students, keeping in mind what things we want to teach.